But I wanted to address a point you were making earlier about how men would access women under secular Quranism or any patriarchal society that practices
Yeah,
monogamy.
keep it under patriarchy, because like the word secular Quranism has been heard many times in this stream.
Okay, so we're talking about patriarchy, and patriarchy is basically monogamy. I think because monogamy is kind of it is the ideal even for Muslims, because it is hedged in this kind of way, which is chapter 4 verse 3, and it says, if you fear that you will not deal justly with the orphan girls, then then marry those that please you, of women, two or three or four. But if you fear that you will not be just, then marry only one, or those your right hand possesses. This is more suitable that you may not incline to justice. So I interpret that to mean that ideally you should only have, for every boy there will be a girl, because that is a more stable kind of society. Because if you get some alpha male, like some sort of Chinese emperor or sultan person with their harem, you're taking the supply of women out of the reach of ordinary men, and then they will get angry and rapey and liable to become mad axe murderers.
I've got two questions.
Yeah, me too. Actually, if you're done, I will pursue mine if you can.
So the more important question, I guess, is actually one of the question is kind of a joke question, kind of, but when you said do only what the right hand can allow, or something like that, can you?
I think it's saying basically that women are booty, and if you go to war and you have booty, and some of this includes slaves, some of whom will be slave girls. That I think that's what it meant. If you in Mohammedan times go to war and I think it means slaves. Slaves,
yeah.
slave girls.
Sex slaves as well. Yeah.
Well,
So
obviously,
basically, but this is my question. So here my problem starts, is that first of all, it doesn't say anything about, like, first of all, you have to think about the criteria in which these women are not well taken care of. So I mean, if you're, I don't know, pretty okay-ish, rich, then you can have multiple women. You can have up to 4 women that you can marry. But then it also talks about the right hand possesses, and that's all the other women that you can also have intercourse with, right? So there are slave girls, and if you're talking about monogamy, that's like definitely not monogamy. That's like the antithesis of monogamy, because you can have as much as you want of these slave girls.
Well, okay, this is how I would interpret it, and there'll be people who disagree with me, but I'm saying, out of your slave girls, you can marry them, and you can marry up to 4 of them if you haven't got
No.
You're going to say, but this is not how I interpret it. But I'm saying under secular Quranism, this is so no man will have more than 4 wives. He can have sex with prostitutes if that's what he wants, but then they wouldn't be his wives. But if he has slave girls, he can't force them into prostitution, and if they agree to be prostitutes, only then can they become prostitutes, so that they can earn their manumission. Because under secular Quranism, every slave has the theoretical possibility of manumission. And if a woman,
it's kind of an interesting topic, because that leads me into the other question that I wanted to ask. I mean, how does this not prove that Christianity is superior when it comes to monogamy? I mean, you love to talk shit about Christianity and how Islam or secular Quranism is more superior, but I mean, when it comes to Christianity, they're very clear. You have one wife, one woman. You don't get any of these dilly dallies on the side. I mean, is this not an example of how Christianity is superior to Islam?
No, because I have been pointing out that, you might need a spot of polygamy after a ruinous war, and for racial reasons, it would have served the British very well after two ruinous world wars for British men to have more than one wife, thus not condemning so many women who long to be wives and mothers to die spinsters.
Okay, but now you can't say, okay, it favors monogamy, because now you're actually saying, oh yeah, it favors polygamy.
No, it
So I
doesn't
mean,
favour,
it's
it
either way.
tolerates polygamy under certain, you know, um,
And it is,
necessary
and it is hypergamy.
circumstances, such as
It,
after a ruinous war and you want to
okay, okay,
replenish
okay,
your
Yeah,
okay.
population.
but you bring up an interesting point with the whole ruinous war concept. I mean, isn't building a system based upon something like wars are not the norm, right? I mean, wars are kind of exceptions that happen, right? We're not always at war. Wars just happen sometimes when shit goes bad. So isn't trying to create a system based upon something that is uh, um, temporary,
Mm.
kind of it's like trying to make a system based upon the exception to the rule.
Oh yeah, and this will
Sorry,
become
I
very,
didn't
this
understand your
become very,
question. Sorry, I didn't
okay, but
understand
this,
what you were trying to say.
all right, but
Can
this,
you repeat it again? I didn't get what you were saying
I
about
think
temporary and
Kana
permanent.
understands the point.
I get it. So basically, because war is not very frequent, why do you make a political system based on a exception? So I mean, it's not often that people are going to war anyway. So if you think like, oh, they're going to get war booty, well, when is that going to happen? I mean, is it going to happen now in the nuclear age, where America's just saying, oh, we'll just point our missiles to Japan, give me your woman? I
Okay,
mean, that's
can I
how it's
just
going to
explain
go
the
now.
situation with regard to war, whether it's normal or not normal? When we think of war as not being normal, it's because we live in an empire, and we always, you've heard of Pax Romana, Pax Britannia, and Pax Americana, and these are empires, and in these empires, in even the EU empire, you get peace. Because empires, although acquired by war, after they've been acquired, you get a period of peace. And if you have different competing nations, the probability is that there will be more war. And this is the kind of, the disbenefit of nationalism, which is,
So
always
so
perceived by the left. And I'm saying this rule, this verse in the Quran gives you the flexibility. It shows that
no.
the ideal is monogamy, but it will tolerate
Oh
polygamy
God,
in certain circumstances. Well,
Answer me this,
no,
Claire.
Look,
it's just not
Answer
true.
me this.
slowly,
How
slowly.
how many wars do you expect? I mean, what does Pax Quranism look like, or Pax Qurana
I
look like?
don't know. I can't predict the
How
future.
many wars do you expect to be involved in under secular Quranism? How often do you expect it to happen?
Look. You have to look at the history of Europe. There were lots of European wars over. There was there were European wars of religion, and a lot of it wasn't just about Christianity. It was about who's going to rule. Is it going to be Pope, or is it going to be the local Duke or Lord or whatever? So there'll always be different local circumstances. And when you say war is uncommon, I'm saying probably it's not that uncommon if you don't live in an empire that has given you peace. But unfortunately, we live in a time of a collapsing empire, and the collapsing empires, declining empires, fall into their Thucydides trap, which is not really a new
Yeah, but
idea.
Claire, yeah, you go rant on, and you just forget that we're living in a nuclear age. You just forget that we're like not living in the 7th century anymore. It's just ridiculous.
Why?
Like,
Tell me what difference being, it's like, okay,
well,
you have
what
these
Nuclear.
nuclear weapons, but people don't
Pak,
use it because
no,
they're
Pakistan,
scared.
no, Pakistan and India, for example, right? They have a
Well, they
lot
haven't
of
nuked each
animosity
other
towards each
yet.
other.
But there are,
What?
border incursions and
Uh, Yeah, well, the reason why why they just have border incursions nowadays, because they have nuclear weapons. I mean, you're not going to raise the
Okay.
stakes. This whole idea that you're
So all stakes have been raised against each other. So it's a zero-sum game.
Well, it's a zero-sum game. Yeah, the Chinese don't want to fuck with the Indians.
Right.
The Indians,
next.
the Chinese don't want to fuck with the Americans. I mean, it's like
It's a balance of terror.
yeah,
Exactly.
definitely, and that's why you think you can just get women from another place, and unless you're just gonna point a nuclear weapon and say, "Give me your women." I mean,
That's not an argument.
Forget
It's
nuclear
like
weapons. Forget nuclear weapons for a second. I mean, when you look at more tribalistic societies like the Saudis or the Pakistanis or whoever, I mean, any of these shitskins, they are much more likely to these tribal conflicts are much more prominent in their societies rather than you don't see the Joneses going to war against the Thompsons, in suburbia USA.
They're not tribally organized. But if you
exactly, right? And when you have these barbaric, tribally organized societies, you have
to understand that Islam
you're trying to build a Western society based upon a shit-skin foundation.
No. If you will let me address what you just asked me, the point is that in Arabia in pre-Muhammadan times were organized on tribal lines, and the whole idea of Islam would be to behave in a fairer way so that you get unions of tribes that form nations. Because when you think about it, from in Britain particularly, the UK is formed of different tribes. The Scottish, the Welsh, the English, and it is always formed after wars, and then they agree not to fight each other anymore and become a nation.
Claire, can you do me
slow
one
down,
favor?
everybody.
Yeah. Can you do me one favor?
Please slow down.
Slow down.
You're completing arguments on top of each other. Just do it one at a time. It's impossible to listen.
All right. So chill a bit, maybe lower your volume a bit as well, and then we can have a good conversation. Because I think you're coming into this really strong and hard, and that's fine. But I'm a bit in a chill mood. So I don't know. I don't want any sinister balls. If that's okay.
Let me re-clarify what I mean by tribalistic. I mean, you bring up how the Celtics versus the Anglos versus the Gaelics or whatever.
Yeah, I'm saying
that's an entirely different concept from when you look at places like Pakistan or India, where it's a more of a villagistic or regional tribal conflict. That's what I'm more referring to.
Yeah.
This tribe on this end of the hill and that tribe on the other side of the hill, and that's where the conflict comes from, not from a Celtic versus Anglo kind of divide.
Well, because you're at different stages of your history. Because there would be
so
feuds,
why are you trying to
Romeo and Juliet.
But that's the whole point. That's the whole point. If we are at different stages in our evolution, then why are you trying to force one system which is designed for one society onto a society that is not meant for it? It's like trying to put a square peg into a round hole.
I'm trying to explain to you that Islam is about abolishing tribalism, amoral tribalism, and forming it into forming tribes into nations. This is the whole idea of Islam. You won't read it, so you'll never know. And also, Islam came after Christianity, and you can't deny that.
Yeah.
Okay, Claire. Has Islam been very successful in, how would you say, eliminating tribalism? Have you looked at Somalia or, I don't know, Pakistan or... I don't know.
I would actually like to address that, if I may be allowed to, without being shut up by three men.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
And I'm saying, obviously, Muslims don't practice their religion perfectly in the same way that Christians don't practice or Jews don't practice their own religions perfectly, and they ignore all the things that they want to ignore. And that's why Gaddafi fell, because the tribes of Benghazi didn't like him, and so they toppled him, and in the end he died. But what I'm saying is that, can I finish my point?
Slow down,
it's a very
dude.
quick one. Who are you telling to slow down?
I'm telling you.
I'm telling you to shut up. So don't invite me on if I can't even finish answering the questions you ask. So I'm saying the whole
the only argument that I have is trying to say that Gaddafi was brought down because there was some tribal squabbles. That's completely incorrect.
I didn't say that.
Gaddafi, we all know that Gaddafi was brought down. Gaddafi was. Let me finish. Can I finish now? Am I allowed to finish?
So what
Claire?
is?
Gaddafi was not brought down because of intertribal conflict. He was brought down because of geopolitical.
Yes, that as well. But it started in Benghazi, right? They rebelled. And then there was all that sort of thing, another color revolution.
No, I'm sorry. Are you telling me that, in all of the decades that Gaddafi was in power, all it took was this one little random part of his country,
I said there were a combination of factors. If Benghazi
could have overthrown
Gaddafi,
if Benghazi was so important and could have overthrown him at any time, then why didn't it happen decades ago?
I'm saying
why did it only happen when Obama started launching missiles?
It was got up by the Americans. All that shit is stirred up by the CIA, by the Americans. They do it everywhere, in Venezuela, in Bolivia.
So you agree? You agree with me then? That's fine. You agree.
What is your problem? I don't want to talk about Benghazi or Gaddafi. I'm saying...
Yeah, you brought it up.
We're talking about Islam. So if I could finish my point about Islam, which is simply that it has a system of rules designed to minimize conflict. And you're refusing to accept that because you insist that Islam is more primitive than Christianity.
Okay,
that's
I
your
do
position.
insist.
But Claire,
And you're not going to ever read the Quran. Is that right?
Okay.
Is that right, Ovi? You will never read it because you are convinced that brown-skinned people are inferior to white-skinned people.
Can we talk one at a time? Can you please talk one at a time? This is fucking impossible to listen to.
No, this is normal. This is normal. So don't
No,
even
it's
worry.
not.
No, yeah, it is Zero. This is normal for our streams. Yeah.
What is this? The fucking psyop? I mean, what the fuck?
Yeah. This is a fucking psyop stream. Yeah. So yes, you're absolutely correct, Claire, that Islam is more primitive.
I didn't say that. I didn't say that.
That's what you just,
No,
that's what you accused me of, and I'm agreeing that yes, it is.
Don't pretend I said things that I didn't say. I said Islam came after Christianity, and Islam has rules designed to minimize conflict because the rules are more clearly stated than in the New Testament.
Okay, Claire. So first you said that in Islamic society they're trying to Islam is trying to solve the tribal problem. Well, right?
I said Islam has clearer rules that are designed to minimize conflict, but only if they're followed. And if these brown people don't follow them, what can I do? I mean, rules are meant to be followed, and if you don't follow them and enforce them, as these people don't, because they're mostly illiterate, okay? These tribesmen in Pakistan, they're illiterate.
Stop. Okay. So basically, Claire, what you're saying is you have a blueprint of a way a society can function that is compatible in many different forms of organizations. As long as that general construct can be followed, then it would work. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, if you follow the rules, it'll work. But there's no point saying I've got the rules, but I don't follow them, and I blame the rules for not working.
Right. Okay.
Even if I don't follow
When
them.
everything works out, what you're saying is that kind of structure is compatible to many different type of organizations, societal organizations, right?
Okay, I can only repeat that the rules are designed to minimize conflict, but only if you
I see.
follow them.
Okay, but here's the question. So why do Europeans who don't have Islam follow them better than Muslims?
Follow which rules?
Well, the rule, for example, against tribalism, right?
Because they don't longer organize themselves into tribes. They don't any longer organize themselves into tribes.
Yeah, that's the point, right?
Yeah, but you're at a
It's
different
almost like
stage
it's
of...
almost like Europeans are more
but
sophisticated.
You're a different stage of... What is the problem and what is so funny?
Modernism,
They're
Dark
in a different
Ages.
What is your
Now
problem?
you're saying they're in a different stage, and you just denied that they were more primitive. I don't know where you get this. Like you're a walking contradiction.
No, I'm not contradicting myself because I'm saying that if you follow these rules, conflict will be minimized, and I'm saying these Muslims don't follow them. And as for the West, are they following any rules? Are they? I mean, is a rule of law being followed in the West?
For example,
The scope
I mean,
of Khanaf's questioning is very.
Wait, hold on.
very
I
limited.
want to answer Claire's question real quick, and then you can go Zero. So, I mean, look at me and Khanaf's. Like me and Khanaf's disagree on a great many things, and we don't have any centralized, codified philosophy that that we both follow, and yet look how well me and Khanaf's get along. I mean, it's almost like white people are more civilized than shitskins.
You're just talking about you and Connox, and you happen to like each other and get on. But what about you and other people? Connox is not.
I happen to get along with a lot of people, actually. I mean, this is pretty well known.
A lot of people are offended by you as well.
Oh yeah, the Wignuts. Yeah, sorry. The trailer trash don't like me. Yeah, sorry. You're right.
I hear you've quarreled with Erica or something. I don't know.
Is Erica trailer trash? I'm not really sure.
I don't know.
She probably is.
Well, things have been said, I suppose. No, but what I'm saying is that basically you're not very nice to each other. I mean, YouTubers.
I'm nice to people who deserve it.
I mean, you're one of the more nicer,
I'm
more
the agreeable
personable
Nazi, yeah.
people around. But I guess the other people are always rubbing each other's backs up the wrong way, and that's why they can't get together. To do anything except fight each other, and
Right.
that is the purpose of being nice to
They're
each
just
other. I
little
suppose.
boys.
Can you name me 10 Muslims who have a similar personality to me?
I don't know that many of them, to be honest. So, but I mean, the fact that I can't name them does not mean that they're not possibly more agreeable or more charming, and than you. It's a meaningless. My answer, whatever it is, would be meaningless because my experience is not representative of the actual truth. I mean, I know you're invested in thinking that you're superior to brown people.
See, this seems to me kind of a problem, right? I mean, if you don't really have that much experience with what your average everyday Muslim is like, and yet you're trying to advocate for this type of society, isn't that kind of a problem?
Well, I think you're making this category error of equating Muslims with Islam. The reason why Muslims suffer is because they have themselves been ignoring important principles of their religion in the same way that Christians and Jews do. And
Now
I think
you're
that is the source of the problem,
now you're
people ignoring
misunderstanding.
their own rules.
Now you're misunderstanding. The point went
Two
above your head,
generalized statements
right?
conflating. Just
No,
so many
but
logical fallacies.
wait, hold on. So you're missing the point, Claire. Right? Is that I don't need to have a system like Islam for me to be a nice person.
But it's
that's
not
the whole
enough
fucking
that
point.
you're a nice person, Ovi. You know, it's that society, in order to get things done and to deal with their internal and external enemies, they
But
need
that's
to
your
get
whole
along
argument
in order
is
to
that you need to have
cooperate.
a system. That's your whole argument is that people need a system in order to regulate their behavior.
Towards
And
each
I
other.
assert that's not the case.
To minimize conflict and ensure greater cooperation to deal with their internal and external enemies. Yes.
Sounds like believable.
Why is it so unreasonable? Why do I need to even explain this to you guys?
Okay, but how is it working, Claire? So you're talking about
How is what working? It's not being implemented.
Well,
The
you
system
said you
that I
can't
advocate
equate.
is not being implemented, so why are you blaming me?
Chill. All right, so you said it's like, why are you equating Islam with Muslims, right? Well, I mean, it's their holy book. It's the common denominator, and we see the common denominator not being very cooperative. In fact, it's the contrary.
Wow,
I mean, there's a lot of wars
dude.
out there in Muslim world, and there's also, I have to say, a lot of criminality against.
You sound like an American,
white
man.
populations.
The way you think.
How so? This is a lot of Europeans. Europeans actually agree with me on the majority.
Wait, what did you say, Zero? Sorry, say that again. I didn't hear you.
No, Konov's is speaking like an American, dude.
Well, I mean, what's wrong with that?
And this. Basically, what's that word?
That's also not an argument, by the way.
He's not making.
So I sound like an American. So how is this?
No, not sound. That's again not a logical fallacy. Your equivalence, your equivalence of your comparisons is inaccurate.
How so?
And just
elaborate. Just say.
There was like 6 examples just from that one sentence.
Well, okay, go ahead. Sam.
Go ahead.
Yeah, your comparisons and the analogies of
which comparisons?
The equivalence they were not they were not in the same.
Okay, you generally say your argument.
Your comparison. Everything was distorted. The equivalency of your comparisons was distorted.
The equivalency of your comparisons. I can't even make sense of that statement.
Specific examples,
that's the problem.
please.
You're not.
Specific examples,
No, you're just
please.
throwing out word salads.
Okay, so then there's the Quran, and there's this book, and then there's that. You're comparing so many different things that sounds similar, but then they're completely different constructs. They're completely different languages.
Examples, please.
And they are. I'm giving you examples.
Yeah. Oh, I'm still waiting for the examples.
I'm just really giving you a rope, man.
So please continue to speak and I'll point out the examples of exactly that.
Well, I just mentioned a few. I just mentioned a few. I think if you're really convinced about how wrong I was, I'm sure you can think of examples.
I'm not saying that you're wrong. You're the way you think is grossly inaccurate.
Yeah,
in what
very
way?
Specific examples, please.
I'm happy to supply them. I'm happy to supply them. People are making a category error when they confuse the brown people who are immigrants in their country, and they don't like immigrants anyway. They confuse it with a book that they will never read, and which these brown people that they hate don't follow anyway. And it's a bit like, saying Jews this and that, and saying it's Judaism that makes them do these things, when in fact these liberal Jews do nothing that the Torah or their holy book tells them to do anyway. So, so
but
the
I'm
only way that you can judge the
I'm not talking
authenticity.
Wait, hold
Oh,
on.
I can't even make a point without you scrambling. It's a very quick point.
I'll let Conop go, but I just want to make this one point real quick, all right? So, I mean, it's got nothing to do with the fucking kikes, nothing to do with the Jews. But you say, Claire, you bring up this point of this book that we'll never read. I mean, it doesn't even matter if I read it, because if I don't know Arabic, right? You know, and as we all know,
those are all statements that you've negated. So you just said nothing. It doesn't matter.
No,
I'm not
I'm
going to
sorry.
read it. So
No,
it's
I'm
like
sorry.
not.
If you listen to the most mainstream Quranic scholars, they say if you don't read the Quran in the original Arabic, it doesn't matter, because you have to read it in the original Arabic for it to be legitimate.
Who says it?
So it doesn't. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter
in what way?
Who says
it doesn't
it?
matter if I read it, because it'll be in the
Who
original
said
Arabic.
it?
If I don't read it in the original Arabic,
No,
if I don't read it, I'll shut up after I say this. If I don't read it in the original Arabic, then it's irrelevant according to mainstream Islamic scholars. So what's the fucking point?
In what sense? Irrelevant in what sense?
Are you telling me that I gotta learn an entire new fucking language
No,
if I want to, if I want to disprove secular Quranism?
No, that's not what we're asking. I'm asking in what sense is it irrelevant if you read it in Arabic or not?
Yeah, this is a great fucking question. It's not my opinion. That's the fucking imam's opinion.
Okay, well then why are you saying it? Like,
it's not my opinion. That's the imam's opinion. I'm just playing by their own rules.
Which imam is
right?
this?
Okay.
Come on, Ovi, tell us the name
let's
of
clarify
this
the
great imam
reason.
who tells us not to read the Quran if we can't read classical Arabic. Come on.
Am I wrong?
What's this fucking name? Tell us his fucking stupid name.
What's the purpose of bringing up that argument if you don't even know what the difference is between reading in English or in Arabic? What the essential differences?
I'll give you the problem. The problem is that meaning gets lost.
You're just saying it, but
what is the name of this stupid fucking imam? Give us his name. Give us his name.
Well, I can give you. I think Yusuf Qaradawi would say this.
You can't even think of his name. I bet
probably Yusuf Qaradawi. I would say
there has to be relevance to what you're saying and a structured argument.
Well,
you're just throwing facts out there and just like, okay.
But you just use words. You never give any specific example. You're just saying, oh, this is inaccurate.
Yeah, well, I'm asking you because you're
error. But you never say.
Yeah, that's what I'm seeing. You're not explaining relevance.
Memory of a goldfish. And that's why you can't think of anything. But if you're so stupid, maybe it's
I'm ad hominems. So okay, so what was the relevance of bringing up that argument that if you only have to read in Arabic? What was the relevance of that argument? What was the point of saying it?
Take it away.
Okay, so they had a debate about the consequences of Islam, let's say, right? So what Islam is in ideal type and what Islam is in reality. Right. So and Claire says, all right, so this is in the scripture and people are not following it at all. And then she's like blaming OV for not reading the book. But I mean, there are problems with interpretation because it is true that many of these the translations of Islam, you can see this in so they put a lot of things in brackets, right? So if you look at a Quranic verse, you see all these like in-between parts in brackets, and that's because there are things that are
context, right?
It's because it gives context, but it's not actually in the literal text, so it makes it very obscure, and that's why people say, and a lot of imams say, and a lot of muftis, a lot of learned men say, you have to read it in its original Arabic because all these translations you have, whether it's Yusuf Ali or Muhammad Pickthall, are inaccurate. They don't.
So translations make it less accurate. Okay.
Yeah, so
Right,
I mean
so-
that is a thing.
Okay, and
Okay,
Ovi
and then
is
so what's the
using it
relevance
as
of
an
that?
excuse never to read the Quran.
Wait, how can you not understand the
Wait,
relevance?
wait, hold on.
Econops just explained to you the relevance.
No,
of
no,
it.
he just explained it, and I asked him. So, okay, so there are certain slight inaccuracies due to translation. Well, how does that relate to like what was the original argument of that?
But here's the point, right? It's
Of
not
bringing
about
that
how,
up.
it's not about how slight the inaccuracies are. It's about the authority, right? That's the whole
What?
point. Is that if you don't read
Okay,
it
so-
in this, if you don't read it in the most pure, unadulterated form, then your opinion is moot.
Okay, well, but this is what's the point of bringing that argument up?
Yeah, well, look,
How does it relate to anything?
The argument that Muslims make.
It explains because even if you read the Quran in English,
Okay.
you won't get the full meaning, which means that scholars and
Sure.
people who speak Arabic are the only ones that could truly know what the Quran is about, right? So, and actually, somebody who really could say something about the meaning of Islam, it has at least a mastery of classical Arabic.
Okay, so there are certain levels of
So
of
Claire,
accuracy.
no, but Claire's saying, "Oh, then you never read the Quran or stuff." Like, well, even if he reads the Quran, I mean, you get some of it, but you don't get all of it, because there's still
Okay,
discussions
so
about
this is
interpretation.
this is the blanket general statement. It's like, okay, it's raining.
No,
so,
I mean, tell that to
how does
Claire.
it relate to?
Tell that to Claire.
Well,
Look, we know, Ovi,
I mean,
that
what was
using
your
it as
argument?
an
Like, what was
excuse
you
never
just
to
you
read
just
the
said
Quran.
you just said
We
No,
know.
Claire.
This
just made a
is
statement.
exactly what it is.
What was your
because
point?
Ovi
What's your point
never
of making a
reads.
statement?
It's not that
Because
he
Claire-
won't read
How many
the
times do
Quran,
we
he
have to
won't
say it?
read anything
We just
at
made the
all.
point
Just
three
look at him.
times.
He'll never read
Guys,
it.
really
That's
like
his
an IQ of
excuse.
fucking people.
Because he
Wait,
doesn't want to change his mind.
Answer your question, dude. You're like running around, dude. Like, what was the point of bringing that up?
Because Claire is always
clarity.
saying, "Oh, you have to read the book. You have to read the book. Blah 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 blah."
Okay, so you have to start somewhere, right?
Of course, you have to start somewhere.
Okay, well, okay.
okay,
so
but I think it's a very not very important.
How does that?
My bigger point is, and I just want to get on with this burger because you're just throwing out words. Anyway, so my bigger
I'm
point
asking simple questions.
is this. So you have Islam as a common denominator. You see people having very similar kinds of attitudes and also quite similar criminal records. If you just compare Pakistanis, for example, or Moroccans in the Netherlands, I mean, very different.
Wait, I thought we were talking about the Quran.
Yeah, I know, but here.
Okay,
Jesus
okay,
Christ,
so
I'm getting there. Jesus Christ.
slowly, because you're running. I'm trying to figure out what you're saying, dude, and what the relevance of it is. Okay.
Well,
so you're talking about like different.
problem.
Okay.
Oh God, Jesus Christ. Fucking
It's okay.
hell.
It's logic. It's okay. It's okay.
Well,
it's okay.
Jesus Christ. I'm really struggling if you're like you're interrupting all the time because you don't know what it is about. But maybe you could I don't know. Yeah, there's this famous quote by
2 ears, one mouth.
Dude, just speak slowly and normally. Just say your point.
Famous quote by Arthur Schopenhauer: If a man walks against a book and you hear a hollow sound, if he bumps his head against a book and you hear a hollow sound, whose fault is it? Is it the book or is it the head? And I think your head is pretty empty, man. No, really. So my bigger point is this. My bigger point is this. So you see Islam behaving as a common denominator and doing very similar kind of behaviors around the world, right? Even though there's some cultural varieties, there's some racial variety. You see people.
But that's applicable to everything.
Would you shut up? And then you see everywhere similar problems. And then Claire says, "No, it's not."
What problems?
The Quran is not.
What exactly are these problems?
Stop. What's the distinction then?
Distinction between what? The common denominator.
Between one system and another system, right? Is that what we're talking about?
Says, no, look, Clara says it's not the Islam's fault that Muslims are behaving bad. It's just all the other reasons without factoring out Islam.
Well, yeah, it's kind of like legal system.
Europeans are behaving much better in a lot of ways.
No. Can you tell us about the problem behind
Wait.
Quran.
That's not it's not an argument dude, at all.
That's absolutely an argument, because
That's not.
Claire's entire point is that Claire asserts that the only way that people can interact with each other on a humane basis is with the Quran, and
I don't think that's what was being said.
That wasn't what I was
it's patently
saying.
not the case.
Yeah, so it's not what was being said. It's maybe better
That is exactly. All right, correct me if I'm
No.
wrong. But, I mean, that's what I heard. That's what I heard.
The only
Well, no,
way,
well,
no.
well,
Said
Claire is saying-
patriarchy and matriarchy.
Well,
Ways,
Claire is
which
saying
one
it's
works the
worse.
best, right?
I'm saying a patriarchy is more stable than a matriarchy. We live in a matriarchy now, and a patriarchy is a society that prioritizes the preferences of married fathers, and a matriarchy is a society that prioritizes the preferences of married mothers. And you don't want to talk about
Even
slut
if you're
shaming.
right, Claire, let's assume that you're right.
Okay.
I mean, I don't necessarily disagree, but that doesn't necessitate the need for the Quran for a patriarchal society.
Okay, what else are you going to use? What are you going to use?
Doesn't
Yeah, but
matter.
you yourself said
Relevant.
that Muslims don't follow the book, so what comes out
Wait.
of Islam is not
So
very
all
good.
we can do is
Muslims
resolve to
are
follow
not
the book
behaving very
better.
well, according to your opinion. According
Wait,
to your
wait,
opinion,
hold
according
on.
to your opinion, Muslims are not behaving very well. So why is the Quran a solution? The Quran
Because
is
they
now-
don't
No,
follow
they're
it,
not
so we
talking about
follow it
Muslims.
better.
and it hasn't really,
We're not- Jesus Christ.
made the problem any better.
And I've already
Again,
told you that the
that's a
problem is that
logical
they don't
fallacy. We're
follow
talking
it.
about a system, not about who's behaving about
Yeah,
something.
but don't you think the system or the book has something to do with their realities? If they all, even though they're very different in a lot of ways,
No, it
they
has to
all
do with
behave
what,
the
it has
same
to do with what people
way.
do.
Whether they follow it
Christ.
Whether
or
they follow it
not.
or they don't follow it, that's it's a different story. We're
Okay,
talking about,
okay. I
we're
think
talking
you
about in
possibly,
theoretical fashion,
possibly
several different types
Zero,
of
you're the
systems,
most
and
dumb
which system
person
is
I've
the most
ever met
most
on the internet.
effective.
And that's like saying fucking something.
Zero.
So look,
Zero
it's very
does
simple.
purpose. Yeah.
We're looking at the theoretical layout of different systems, kind of like a circuitry, right? Like, you take different processors, you have AMD processor, you have Intel processor, you apply any kind of function, and which one works the most efficient. Is that what we're looking at?
What?
What the fuck? Dude,
What do you mean, what the
do you
fuck?
even make, do you even
Do you
make
not
sense
do you
to
not
yourself?
understand? Okay, but do you understand what a system is?
Yes.
Like a legal
Yes.
system. Okay,
Yes.
A legal
secular Quranism, from what I'm understood, is a type of legal system which organizes society, kind of the same way like a computer processor organizes information in a
With
certain
its
way.
algorithms. Yeah.
and
Exactly.
keep going.
Fucking dumbasses. Jesus
Wait,
Christ.
wait, is that your
When is the point coming?
No, listen, look.
No,
Now
I'm
we've got
sorry.
that,
Is that your
apart.
final? Is that your period? I mean,
This
What
is
are
a
you talking
full
about? No,
stop
I'm
at the
trying- I'm
end.
trying to
Or
figure out
is
what-
it a mark?
Trying to
I
figure
don't
out
know.
what we're.
I'm still waiting for you to make your fucking point.
You don't even know what this conversation is about. That's the fucking
I'm
AMD
beginning
versus
to
Intel.
analyze it and figure it out what it is.
Well, give Zero a chance instead of
Right.
interrupting him the whole time. He's
Yes.
hardly spoken, and you're falling over each other to interrupt each other in order to interrupt him.
No, it's just
Ridiculous.
it's
Okay.
you really
Go
really
on.
remind me.
I think
you
Zero
really
should
remind
be
me of
allowed
like
to-
you
have
really
enough
remind me of
time
like a
and
like a
space
gas
to make
station
his
of a baiting
point.
string,
He's
Wait.
starting to say something really
Oh, please.
interesting.
Oh, please.
Yeah. Give you a break. The
Oh,
Kit
wait,
Kat
what do you
bar.
mean? When Jenny is on?
Okay,
What?
Like a
Zero,
word
why
salad
don't
of, like,
we start a stream?
extreme-
Because I'm really interested in
So
your
it's
idea
very
of the
simple.
system thing. I mean, if you can't discuss it
see
here,
here.
I'd really like to discuss it with you, Zero, about your this system thing that you're talking about. This
Oh,
circuit.
here it comes. Is Zero? You're about to become the next.
Yeah, John Vance.
Huh? What are you talking about?
You don't have to become anything.
You guys are like lost. You're like running around
no,
in this.
we know
You're running
exactly
around this
what we're talking
simulacra of like your own. It's like you're running around in like the past or something. in your memes. I don't even know how to explain this.
Yeah, I wish it was 19.
Okay,
fancy words
I'm
won't
going
help
to
you.
leave now, and I hope I've got Zero's email, so I can contact him. Because obviously he won't get the chance to
He
explain
really
it
needs
because he's
someone
been
to
Someone
talk
so
seen
to.
good.
as
So good.
being possibly going to be reasonable about secular Quranism, and
Yeah.
I guess I'll go now. Are there any questions you wanted
It's
to
like
ask me?
Yeah,
it's like
I do.
it's like emotional outbursts. It's like little children. You're like ha ha ha.
Being like
That
girls.
was a very poor impersonation of my laugh, I have to say.
Yeah, you should
Well.
add meow meow at the end.
Yeah.
You guys are silly. I mean, like,
Yeah.
I mean, were you guys just trying to have fun, or were you, like, what was you guys' purposes? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, to elucidate-
Are we not being serious? I mean,
We are being very serious.
Well, I don't know. It's up to you.
I wanted just to elucidate a very basic distinction, and I also wanted.
Oh, finally.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I wanted, what's more clear, to talk about this distinction between Islam and Muslims. So Claire thinks that
Okay.
Islam doesn't have any effect of like how Muslims are behaving in the world. So she basically says that Muslims are behaving a certain way, but that has nothing to do with Islam.
I'm saying it's
basically
because they
also-
don't
what's-
follow it. Oh, for heaven's sake!
What's the causality? What's the direction of causality? Right? Is it? I don't know.
Well, that's a good question. But that's
that
what I
actually
say.
is a good question. Yeah.
And that's a good question because I see, for example, a lot of like cultural. I want to try to reiterate this again, but cultural dissimilarity. So you have Muslims in Pakistan, you have Muslims in Morocco, right? But they have similar kinds of problems, and the common denominator, even though they're very culturally different, is Islam. So if you factor that out, I think that it's a silly idea what Claire is proposing. So she says like, oh well, but they're not reading their Quran or they're not doing this and saying it's
Okay,
not a factor,
tell
even
us
though
what the
people are there
problem is.
very religious.
Come on, Connots,
Much
tell
more
me
so.
what the problem is. What? Tell me what the problem is in Morocco, and tell me what the problem is in Pakistan, and then maybe we can analyze the nature of the problem and the solution. So
Well, I mean,
how are they different?
There's
These
very many.
Pakistanis
I
and
can
Moroccans.
list a lot of them. I mean,
Just
there's a
one
lot
or two will do.
Okay, well, we'll talk about tribalism again because you said that Islam actually like sort of eliminates tribalism and is some kind of proto-nationalism. Well, we don't see that. We talked about the tribes a lot here, and you see that in Europe there's less tribalism, and
Yeah, because
in Islam
Europe
there is
has
more
been
tribalism.
organised for so much longer that men just don't see themselves in tribes, because in order to have a tribe you have to have a clan, and in order to have a clan you have to have fertile women who produce lots of sons. Don't you
Now
understand?
you're being a little bit too literal, Claire. Right? I mean, when we talk about tribalism, it's not in the necessarily the strict sense that you're interpreting it.
We already know that urban Western man is atomized.
Yeah,
Don't
but you
we?
said no. But I just want you to return to your point. It's like we never really get a chance to like really dissect the point, and that's when you say that Islam is better, and Islam is better for like how would you say canceling out tribalism, and then you go on saying like yeah, but we do need it for the West.
Okay,
In a
what
sense.
I'm
Even-
saying,
even
can
though
I
it's
actually
less
say what I
effective as it
actually
means,
said?
but
I said
in-
patriarchy is better than matriarchy, and I'm saying Islam has clearer rules that will minimize conflict. That's what I said.
Well,
Yeah, but that's not what
here's
we
the
see.
real quick. Here's the funny thing, Claire, is that I think all of us here are in agreement that the patriarchy is superior. As much of a hedonist that Conops is, he would I think he would agree that he's the one that wears the pants in the relationship. So when you're talking about, we need Islam, we need the Quran for the patriarchy. No, I don't think that Conop does. I don't know about about zero, but I mean.
You don't want
just
to restore the
just
patriarchy?
within
Is that what you're
just
saying?
within our own little what do you call it, our own little subsection. No, none of us need the fucking Quran to establish the fucking patriarchy.
No, but you
if
don't
we
have a
we want to,
patriarchy.
if
You
we
live in a
desire to.
matriarchy, so you need to. What are you saying? You're saying let's carry on living in the matriarchy. You're happy with that? Is that what you're really saying, or do you deny that you live in a matriarchy? I don't understand your position, Ovi.
Well, no, we do as a society. Yes, we do live in a matriarchy. Well, I mean it's variable. Actually, I would say. A lot of it comes down to how you interact with society. A lot of it comes down to the person that you interact with. Obviously in Europe, we are a very highly individualized society, and some women are more amenable to a patriarchal mentality in relationships, and some SJW type women are much more amenable to a matriarchal type
But
relationship.
I don't.
It's not you can't claim that it is a an either or situation.
I think you're
There are
fundamentally.
shades. There are shades of gray, if you want to put it that way.
No, we're not talking about patriarchy as in man being rude to or commanding a woman. I'm defining patriarchy as a society that prioritizes.
Oh, I thought you didn't want to talk about the Jews, though.
No, you're derailing the discussion now to Jews.
Wow,
So,
that sounds like
clearly you don't want to
multiculturalism,
admit
man.
that you live in a matriarchy because you don't want
50
to
Shades of
restore
Grey?
the patriarchy.
That's what it sounds like.
But I don't know who derailed the conversation first, because I was still talking about what is going wrong in the Islamic world and what you're not connecting to Islam. So, for example, all the conflicts that are happening at the moment, like all the tribalism, not just tribes or clans, but also Sunni and Shia, like people really kill each other there.
Okay, tell me what incidents you are referring to in which country.
Jesus Christ.
No,
Okay, we'll talk about the
for you to be specific, not just say, oh, these Muslims are killing each other wherever. We need to talk about, specific acts of terrorism in specific countries. It's like you.
Yeah, but you never. Okay, I always bring them up. But you never want to
extrapolate the examples, how they relate to the system.
Okay, fair enough. I'll bring up some specific examples. So, the civil war in Yemen, the civil war in Syria.
Okay,
let's talk about.
You're completely discounting
alleged civil war in Syria.
What about tribalism in Somalia? What about the state collapse in Mali? What about?
I think there is American interference and there's Western interference in Somalia.
Well, no, why can't you just let me speak? Are you afraid that what I'm going to say
you're gish galloping again? Because you're what you're referring to has been the consequence of foreign interference, and you're saying, look.
Oh,
all right, pick one example.
Just slow down.
All right. So pick one example.
Let's have a normal cadence.
So there's no accusations of gish gallop. Just pick one example.
All right, let's talk about Mali. All right, so you have the Tuareg tribes against the more Black African population in the south. They have Islam, but they both have similar kinds of Islam. It's both Sunni Islam, but they're clearly not getting along.
Well, because they're different tribes and they're fighting for resources. So, I mean, people are
But you say that.
Great answer.
Basically, what you're saying, you chose Mali because you think nobody knows anything about Mali, but I'm quite happy to admit that I don't know anything about Mali. So
yeah,
you want
it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, exactly. So why talk
you know nothing about it?
Why talk about the tribal conflicts of a primitive society when really we want to talk about the fact that the West is a matriarchy?
No. This is your topic. Why
No,
can't I talk
my
about
topic
people
is
that are
my topic is
you-
simply my topic
your
is
topic
simply
is always
that
what you want to choose
patriarchy
to be your
is
topic.
better
You
than
never want to talk
matriarchy,
about.
and you
Well,
want to
okay,
derail
wait,
the
all right,
conversation
double
to
order,
bloody Marley.
Order,
I can see where where you're going.
All right,
And
Kanop,
Marloff.
can you? All right, let's bend over backwards. Can you pick an example?
Barely bending forwards.
Pick an example that you know that Claire has some knowledge about. So
Perhaps Yemen. What about Yemen? Is that okay, or should I choose another one?
You know that the Yemen was you know Saudi was sold a whole bunch of weapons by the West, and then it started bombing it. So why are you saying it like it's the fault of the Muslims that the Yemenis got bombed by the Saudis?
All right,
Because,
so Muslims are
West
fighting
sold the
everywhere in the world, and
Saudis
it's
a
the
bunch of
Americans' fault.
arms.
You are worse than OV. OV is blaming the Jew, but you're blaming the Americans for every fucking thing, every internal quarrel, everything. It's the Americans. It's the Americans.
Hey, OV, are you married?
Hey, would you shut up for fuck's sake?
I'm just asking.
Fucking.
No, I'm not married. No.
No. I'm fucking it. I'm sorry.
Are me and Kanop married?
No. Listen, controlled opposition. Are you married by any chance?
No.
He doesn't want to be.
Who says that?
No, I was just wondering, like, how he would.
I've already given permission for Kanop to marry my Italian brethren, so or sister, I guess you could say.
Is she hot?
I mean, she's Italian,
Yeah.
so
Okay.
she's Italian, so she must be hot.
All right, fantastic.
Can we go back on the subject, which I found very elucidating? So every time I come in with an example, then Claire comes like, oh, the Americans are involved in everything,
Look,
and
we just
Muslims
want to
don't
talk
have
about
any
patriarchy and matriarchy. We don't want to talk about
autonomy.
geopolitics. But, that's
Wait
why
a
always
second.
derail the
You-
conversation.
25
You
things
brought
we
up Claire.
about,
You were
like-
the one that brought up geopolitics. You're the
I
one
don't-
bringing up the Americans. The Americans.
No, because I didn't even want to talk about Mali. I just wanted to talk about patriarchy and matriarchy and
Yeah,
which
always
system
the same
will.
fucking
Like the
subject.
scope just
Boring,
goes
man.
from micro to general topic to something very specific, and then jumps to it's just like wow.
Yeah, but because
Um,
Connaught, it's his way of
diversionary
derailing
tactics.
the conversation.
No,
All right,
no,
Claire, you pick the example.
20 files.
All right. How about this, Claire? You pick the example. You pick your best example, and let's see if Konops
There
can
is
prove it
no
wrong.
best example. I mean, we already agreed
Ooh,
that
that's
patriarchy
interesting.
is better than
Is it even impossible
matriarchy.
to have a conversation? Like,
You know,
this
it's
is
actually
interesting.
impossible to make a point here, isn't it? I mean, you know, you've actually agreed with me that, okay, Ovi, you're saying you've already agreed with me that patriarchy is better than matriarchy, and the Western man should live in a patriarchy, and you're saying you can do it without Islam or the Quran, and I'm saying, you know, go ahead and do it without a big idea other than, you know, OV says we should live in a patriarchy and then everybody's going to do it. So, you know, I know my limits, and I know people are not going to listen to me just because I say so. So I refer to a higher authority.
Yeah,
And
what
that's
I'm saying
doing.
is that patriarchy is the standard base point that people agree to, and under no duress. Right. Obviously, if we are living in, as you know, Kanop would love to disagree, if we are living under a Jewish-run society, then you know things will change. But we don't need to follow a certain sand nigger text in order to establish that patriarchy.
But I thought you had said previously, Ovi, that you agree with slut shaming. So how are you going to shame?
I do agree with slut shaming.
So
yeah,
how
I
are you going to
still
shame
agree with it.
sluts?
Do it now, Ovi. Do it now.
with my backhand. That's how I do it.
Okay, so you reserve the right to hit women.
I'm being a little bit flippant, but the point still remains. I don't need a book to help me shame sluts.
No, but it's not, it's not just a matter of individually saying, oh, you're a slut. Da, da, da. No, you actually need a rule or a law that will make sluts.
It's called wearing the pants.
How are you going to do that? So what are you suggesting that you're...
It's called being a man.
Well, just give me a practical example apart from hitting a woman that you think is a slut. You think you have the right to go up to any woman and hit her in the face? Is that going to gain you popularity?
Claire, are you not hearing the are you not hearing the words that are coming out of my mouth?
Well, I want a specific example of how you're going to shame sluts if you're not going to use the law. So you're saying every man has a right to go up to any woman and give her the benefit of his backhand, and you expect to be elected to power, do you?
Well,
I don't think your mother would like to hear it.
Okay. So here's the problem, Claire. Even with the Quran, let's assume that there is a unified, codified system that everyone adheres to. That doesn't guarantee that sluts will be shamed. This really comes down to basic biology.
What do you mean?
Sluts will only follow alphas, macho men, right? I mean, there's no way around it. There's no book that will automatically make women follow rules.
I know it has to be enforced.
Women follow strong
it has
men,
to be enforced.
and it doesn't matter how great of a book that you have. If you're not a strong man, then the women won't follow.
I know that laws are, rules are made to be broken. So every rule, whatever the law is against murder, people will be committing murder, and it only has a discouraging effect, a deterrent effect. It won't completely eradicate the undesirable behavior. But what I'm saying is that unmarried parents would get 100 lashes per illegitimate offspring. That would be the tariff of punishing sluts and slut fuckers. So unmarried parents would be the target of my proposed legislation, and you're proposing to go around hitting women.
Yeah, and it's funny. I was just recently watching a series of podcasts talking about the history of Rome. I know I talk about Rome all the time, and Augustus did exactly what you're talking about. When Augustus was in power, he saw that Romans were becoming kind of complacent and hedonistic in society, and that they were not actually settling down and marrying, and they were becoming, more slut fuckers, if you want to put it that way. And he did everything he could. He tried to make the laws as anti-sluttish as he could.
They were proposing a bachelor
his
tax.
own daughter, Augustus's own daughter, was famous for being someone who went out and fucked slaves, who fucked, she was a fucking whore by every definition of the term. And this is the emperor's own daughter. So at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what kind of rules to establish. What matters is the person.
Well, what matters is how it's enforced, and I think we know that in those times, divorce was easy to obtain.
You are telling me that even when the Emperor of Rome, Augustus, the adopted son of Caesar,
I need to know what the rules of divorce in Rome were.
Irrelevant.
Yes,
it doesn't matter.
It is relevant because if it's not enforced...
this is the Emperor of Rome saying that this is the law. You follow the law,
we need to know how it's enforced. So what were the laws? Okay.
And even when the Emperor of Rome made the harshest rules as possible, it still did not solve the problem. That's
We
so.
need to
I
know
mean,
what the
it's
rules of
Quran
divorce
is
were,
relevant.
and you keep talking over me. So we need.
All right, no,
Did they have
go,
no
go
fault
ahead.
divorce? Did they
I
have no
need
fault
to
divorce
refill my
in Rome?
eggnog.
So
Go ahead, keep talking.
okay, so ancient Romans led the way to no fault divorce. So really, okay, this is something from Stanford University. It says no fault divorce is not unique to the 20th century. The ancient Romans showed the way. So obviously that was wrong. In Islam, they all make a marriage contract, which is called the nikah. So divorce would always be a breach of the marriage contract, and therefore, if you adopt the Islamic system of only allowing engaged couples to marry after they've agreed a marriage contract, then you are implicitly abolishing no fault divorce, because any divorce will be on the breach of the marriage contract. So Romans didn't get a divorce, they simply divorced. So to divorce, one or both parties to a Roman marriage simply had to consider themselves no longer married. It was deemed advisable to notify the other party, but not legally required that one do so. No public authority was involved. So, it's important to know that was how they did it. So your
but
wife
that's
could
the
just
same
say,
for
well,
Islam.
I don't want to be married to you anymore.
God,
And that's it.
okay. That's the same. No, whoa. That's the same for Islam.
No.
What do you think?
No.
What do you think talaq means? What does talaq mean?
Talaq means divorce. And there are rules for divorce.
Well,
there are rules
and
for
What
divorce.
does triple talaq mean?
No, there's no such thing as triple talaq.
Oh,
I
it is.
I know that there are some schools of Sharia.
No,
that
not
say-
no.
no,
Which
no.
school,
Okay,
Dom?
okay. I'm
Which
actually
school, Claire?
going
Which
to
school?
go
Which
now
school?
because
Which
there's
school?
no point trying to shout over you
Oh,
because you will
you
never.
always
we've had
talk
this,
over
we've,
people,
We've had
and
this discussion before, and you're saying under secular
yeah, exactly.
Quranism there will be no triple talaq, which is saying I divorce you 3 times and that's it.
yeah,
No.
it's mainstream. Mainstream.
No, it's not even
Mainstream.
mainstream. That is complete shit. So,
All right.
under
So
secular
you're
Quranism, there
standing
will
by
be no stupid law like this.
Yeah, all right. So you have your own weird interpretation of
Well,
Islam.
obviously that's
and-
why I call it secular Quranism, which is a new school of Sharia.
Yeah, just like all other schools of Sharia that disappeared. All right.
Okay.
You think you can make that?
Yeah,
you think
yeah,
you can
obviously
hold
I
that?
have to. It's logical and necessary for me to do so. Otherwise, I'll be just following the same old crap.
Wow,
It'll never work.
Pessimist.
Yeah, but I mean, this is the conclusion that everybody came to, right? I mean, the word
Everybody.
Quran is
Wow.
the best. Yeah, almost everybody. Yeah.
Oh,
mean,
yeah. Oh, yeah.
If this is Islam,
You sound like Bruno.
Oh Jesus Christ!
Do you think
Are gonna
everybody's
interfere with
stupid? Yeah.
well,
Everybody is stupid.
I think you are
Stupid.
very, very stupid.
Of course.
Zero. It's better
Incredibly
to
so.
it's better to be silent and be thought a fool rather than open your mouth and confirm it. Yeah, there
So
you
I
go.
think your advice-
Well, basically, but,
Quick
but
learner
yeah,
right
but
there.
this is funny. So you're blaming Augustus for something that's been Islamic tradition for 13 centuries, and Islamic consensus. So you're blaming Augustus for doing something that was very mainstream in Islam.
I'm afraid you won't be able to pin the rap of no-fault divorce on Islam. I think you have heard of the nikah, which is a marriage contract, and therefore divorce in Islam is breach of the marriage contract, and you are going to deliberately ignore this and not acknowledge this no matter how many times I say it.
Okay, so
real quick, just to finish up the Augustus story, it does have a happy ending. Well, I mean, I guess depending on your point of view, when Augustus found out that his daughter was, fucking, slaves, left, right, and center, he actually banished her from Rome. So, I don't know, the patriarchy won in the end, I guess you could say. But go ahead, Conrad.
What?
So, did you not hear me? Yeah. Augustus, when Augustus found out that his own daughter was not following the rules that he had established for Rome, he actually banished her.
See,
Okay.
Thought
Okay, and
control
then- and
is
then-
possible without Islam. See,
Okay.
and to the other point, I mean,
What's the,
I know.
what was the point?
Oh God, what is the point?
So this was where the first video ended. This is obviously a consolidating stream, and I will now proceed to play you the second part of the exchange. There might be a little bit of overlap. Here goes.
So, you know, I don't know, the patriarchy won in the end, I guess you could say. But go ahead, Colin.
What?
So, did you not hear me? Yeah. Augustus found out that his own daughter was
Patriarchy won?
not following the rules that he had established for Rome. He actually banished her.
See,
Okay.
thought
Okay, and
control
then-
is possible without Islam. See,
Okay.
and to the other point, I mean,
What's the,
I know.
what was the point?
Oh God, what is the point?
Yeah, I guess there's
The-
Spanish, right?
We don't need Quran. We don't need Islam.
See, Claire can't do
What?
it anymore. You see, Claire can't. Claire
I
can't do
don't know
it.
how you came to that. What? Okay.
See,
Patriarchy
now,
won.
like
All right.
always, when I put her on the spot, she will either kick me, and when she can't kick me, she will go herself, as you see now. But yeah, anyway, so for Islam, it's quite established, at least among all the Sunni schools. I mean, that's 85% of Islam, that you can divorce your
Okay.
wife. You can divorce your wife just by saying, "I divorce you, I divorce you, I divorce you." Right?
Okay.
And then also you can take her back without her consent and even without her knowing things. So her criticism of Augustus first is much more equally and better applied to Islam, because Islam had a much deeper tradition of that than the Roman Empire. So it's
Oh,
weird. So
right.
she's criticizing Islam, and then she's saying, "Oh, right, so Islam is the solution for Europe." Well, it's crazy talk. The lady can't defend
Well, you
herself,
can
and that's why every
certainly-
time I come on stream, she just bails or kicks me up.
Well, you can certainly take Islam and break it in different parts and use good parts and discard the bad ones, right?
You could say that about any system.
Exactly.
So why are we talking about
So why
Islam
don't
as
we do
as
why
if
don't we
it's
do
the
that
only
then?
answer? But this
Well,
is the whole
I'm not
thing,
saying
right?
it's the only
But-
answer.
No, but this is the whole point, right? Is that Claire thinks that Islam is the only solution. That's what we're arguing against.
The only, I don't know, it's too general of a statement.
Have you been paying attention, Zero? Do
Yeah,
you
I
know
have.
what we're talking
Yeah, I
about?
have. Yeah, I have. And
Uh,
you're using like generalized statements, like absolutist statements. And
Yeah.
and
Like
it
which?
doesn't
Which?
look- it
yeah,
does not
I'm
look like
a
it
fucking Sith.
reflects
I'm a
what
Sith
was
Lord.
being
Yeah,
said.
that's what I am. Yeah.
Okay, could you individually like disentangle our arguments and say where they're actually generalized and yeah, what you think is wrong with them in general. So just name a specific example, and then we can go from there, because you're just using the word
Well,
overgeneralization.
like I just did.
In what way?
Why aren't we breaking things down? Instead, you guys are just saying, well, Islam is just
That-
one whole thing.
We've never said that it's not possible to do that, right? But we've been talking in a
Okay,
Muslim, we've
but
been
you're not
talking
doing
in
it.
an Islamic context, right? We've
Sure.
been talking in a
Sure,
Quranic
but you're not
context.
doing it though. Right. Instead, you're saying, well, if this doesn't work, then the whole thing doesn't work.
Well, but the problem is, like, Islam is, or any system is not something you can just cherry pick. You can't just cherry pick something. You say, these are good ideas about Islam, and I'm just gonna pick them because we're
No,
talking about a context.
I understand that, but at the same time, you can break it down if there's a problem somewhere, right?
Yeah, but that's what I was trying to do
Okay.
with marriage, and that's what I was also trying to do with tribalism. But the moment I
Okay.
start about something like that, Claire just either runs away, shouts over people, or she goes to another subject, her
Okay.
favorite pet bucket, which is patriarchies. Like, I mean, every time I've talked to her
Okay.
now for recent times, it's always about this one element of Western culture
Okay.
that she doesn't like, and she's not referring to all the things in the Islamic world that are a problem. So you can even say, even if Islam was would be a solution for the patriarchy,
Sure.
it could actually entail a lot of other problems that are much worse
Yep.
in a lot of respects. And I think that's
Okay.
something that she doesn't want to talk about because she knows it's a problem. And she knows that tribalism is a problem. She knows
Okay.
that war is a problem. She knows that scientific development is a problem. And that's why she doesn't want to talk about it.
But if you guys are running around like in circles and it's the same circle over and over and over again, can't you guys change the direction that you make your arguments to sort of to unwind this all sets of these arguments to come to some sort of conclusion?
Well,
Because like, you'll never get to any conclusion. Like,
No, wait a second. Let's be clear here. It's Claire that is making the arguments. We're just responding to Claire's arguments.
but it's the same responses. It's almost sounds like insanity.
Yeah, because she also always goes on the same subject, and she doesn't is not really able to concede something. So because she's a propagandist, so I think there's a difference between an intellectual and a propagandist.
What's the difference?
Well, an intellectual actually also wants to embrace facts that are inconvenient for his own ideological position, and a propagandist will deliberately and falsely ignore things that are
That's not propagation then. That's deceit. It's not propagation.
Yeah, it is deceit what she's doing. I would say deliberately so. She knows this. And that's why she never wants to talk about Mali. That's why she never wants to talk about Syria.
That's why Claire isn't here right now.
That is why Claire isn't here right now. That's very true.
Okay. All right. No, I was just not trying to follow this. It was just like I guess you guys have a history and all that, and doing this forever. But yeah, it was almost impossible to figure out what the fuck was going on.
Well, I mean, she is a bit like, I mean, she's become such a fucking broken record. Like, I now I can even like dream
true.
her arguments, and I can make them better than her at this point, I think.
Okay, well, you could have. Well, that was my next point. You could have actually like explained things in a much more sophisticated fashion, which one would be obvious.
Wait, are you? I mean, we did try.
But you guys are running on top of each other's sentences, and it weren't allowing her to finish certain things.
Well, that's normal.
Like,
that's normal.
That's not normal. That's dysfunctional, dude.
No, I think it has to do with the way she constructs her argument. So what she does is she mentions a few things at the same time, right? So you So you can't respond to any individual parts of it. So she goes and rambles on, and then you want to disentangle some of these arguments she makes, and then she just wants to ignore and change the subject. So
all right.
Yeah, so I think that's my big problem. So then an interesting, sophisticated elaboration of the topic is not going to work. Yeah, it's not going to work out.
I think the.
I see both of you guys' points. So I mean,
good. I'm glad to hear that.
No, I'm yeah.
I think from this.
It was just like my head is spinning, you know.
Well, your head is spinning. I'm the one that's been streaming for fucking 20 hours.
Yeah.
Okay. You know, I've been, dude, I've been streaming for weeks, so.
Just a little bit of a humor.
Yeah. I know.
Don't start with me now. Jesus Christ. We're trying to have a little bit of fun.
It really gets to Domingo. If that makes it Makes you feel better.
Is Domingo isn't even here.
He's always here.
Oh wait, Kanop, here. This is a question for you.
So is Cade.
Who's more of a broken record, Kanop? 1 for Claire, 2 for OV.
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's crazy that she doesn't see that she's. Well, you don't allow me to talk my talking points. That's what she just throws in chat. Well, sweetheart. You have your talking points, and you always say this fucking same thing. And you ramble on for ages, and you don't let others unpack a part of your argument because you know it's very faulty. And this is also, I mean, it refers to what Jay said in the chat earlier. Name me a single country, Claire, where everything in the Islamic world is all motherhood and apple pie.
It's kind of like, why would you do that?
Why would you do that? Because she thinks
what's the point of making asking that? Okay, so what does that have to do with the Middle East?
Well, no, yeah, but I think she should do that and not like sit around in lazy London and talking about how we should all change. And she's not willing to face the consequences of her own ideology and move somewhere in the Middle East.
Well, we're talking about Europe.
Well, that's a good question. She hates Europe.
Well, so if we're not talking about like Sandingers or whatever, then what's the point of asking about it?
Well, because she wants to change Europe. She wants to impose secular Quranism, whatever that means.
Right. Okay, so maybe that system would.
European.
Okay, so maybe that system would work better on Europeans because they're smarter. Duh.
Yeah. You know that. I know that the best way to establish a society is to use a system that is totally foreign and that has no trial and error. There's been no practice run or anything like that. Let's just impose secular Quranism on Europe. I'm sure nothing could go wrong.
No. What we really need to do is to establish what that actually is. And what the parameters are.
There's no such thing. No, but here's
what do you mean there's no
the
such
fucking
thing?
no
Doesn't make any sense.
Zero. Here's what you're missing. There's no such fucking thing as secular Quranism. It's just some bullshit that Claire
maybe it doesn't exist yet. Okay, well let's figure out what she made up, right? Isn't that
yeah, well we have, but believe me, Zero, we have talked about this till the cows come fucking home.
I understand that, and we haven't really asked the pertinent questions. That's the thing.
But the thing is here, like, I mean, she's talking about an ideal type, right? So you remember that the communists used to say this about communism in the Soviet Union and in Mao's China. The Western communists would say, well, that's not real communism. I mean, there's this ideal communism, but I mean,
right.
It's nowhere in
socialism before we get to communism, right?
No, I'm talking about. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like what her type of argument is. So.
Dude, I was born in the Soviet Union.
Yeah.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, okay, but what Western communists always said that there was every time communism was put into practice, it was the wrong kind of communism. But this argument you can always make. So this is the argument we make in Islam, and she always says, yeah, but it's the wrong kind of Islam. Okay. Well, I mean, Islam is a long.
But is that relevant? Is it?
Yeah, it is like bloody relevant because what she's.
But is it the same thing? Does it apply?
Yeah, of course it applies. Of course it applies. Because...
So they're all always the same, right? It's always the same circumstance.
Every time I mention something, I could even mention the people in Chechnya or people in Dagestan.
But it's a generalized argument.
Generalized in what?
It may not necessarily. What I'm saying is that your example may not necessarily always be true. And if you don't understand how that's the case,
you're not getting.
Then you're getting
it. You're not getting the difference because
I'm getting.
Maybe no. In theoretical ways, you could say, oh yeah, well this might not be true, but if we see everywhere in the world the same fucking results, then maybe your theoretical concept that's very similar to another theoretical concept that's already been tried and failed. Maybe you should try it out. Maybe you should be so, how would you say, risky with these things. And I think that way that communism.
Okay, well, maybe it's not necessarily the same thing. So we have to look at the specifics because it's just like it's generalized arguments, man.
No, why you always repeating like
Listen,
phrases that are
I'm increasing the complexity of the overall argument to the third
I
or
wish
fourth
you were.
magnitude while you're
Unnecessary
going on the first or second.
complexity. Unnecessary complexity does
It's
not
not
mean
not unnecessary.
a smarter argument.
It's being accurate.
Yeah, shall we use
Your
Occam's razor?
your comparisons are incomplete. It's like,
How?
well, one car is
So?
better than the other car, but then like, well, we have to look at the actual car.
No,
I mean, it's
what
like
you no. Okay, what you say is there is a car on one wheel, right? It has never been tried, but it's stable as fuck. It's never been like everywhere it's been tried, it's stable as fuck. Let's wait. I have to repeat myself. So like, there's a car that doesn't have an engine, right? So that's
Well, it's not a car then. It's technically not a car.
No. It's an
Well, it's
ideal
technically not a
type.
car.
Wait. Hold
Then-
on.
then you
Let
could say-
Konop finish.
All right, so
Okay.
so you have this car without an engine, right? And everywhere it's been tried, a car without an engine,
Okay, it's
it
not a car.
doesn't.
Okay.
It doesn't work. It doesn't work.
Right. So it's a
Right? So it doesn't
non-functional car.
drive. It doesn't drive. Well, you can have different definitions of car. Well, we can go into
Okay,
other
okay,
examples.
that's fine.
if
That's
you want.
fine. Okay, continue.
Oh
All right.
God, for fuck's sake! All
No,
right, so
continue. No, you give up too easy. Come on, dude.
Jesus
I'm
Christ,
here.
Jesus Christ. Yeah, well, wait.
Continue.
All right, so,
What the fuck?
but
What are
you
you?
said-
What are you praying
yeah,
Jesus
you
for?
just always interrupt.
Continue your point.
Nerd.
I'm not.
All
I'm
right, so
listening. Go ahead.
allow me to make my point, and then don't
Yeah.
always interrupt. Maybe after
Okay.
that you can dissect why the
Okay.
the argumentation is wrong. But
Gotcha.
because you have a memory of a goldfish, that's probably very difficult. That's why
Okay,
you always
all
have
right,
to
so-
interrupt.
okay.
All right. Oh, there we go. So, okay, a car that doesn't have an engine. Has been tried everywhere. It doesn't work. But you say, well, there's this ideal type of car without an engine, but it will still work. That is Claire's argument. And then, yeah, maybe like in a very small chance that maybe there would be some how would I say, like, innovation why it could work. But I don't know. She's never pointed it out why it's like why it's not gonna fail just like the other Islams or secular Quranism. So she's
how-
like
and how's-
talking
and how's
about
the-
like an ideal
Right.
type, something that doesn't exist,
Okay.
that is very similar to things that do exist, and all the things that do exist are cancer, AIDS.
Wow.
Allegedly, they're cancer.
Okay, so whatever. Let's say, bring it back to the actual example. So all other Islam has failed.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, it's been tribal.
Yeah,
It's been
so-
very bad at scientific progress.
Wait,
so,
no, wait. Actually, real
so,
quick.
all
let me
all
turn.
people are
let me-
extinct, right?
Wait, say that again.
So all the people who have practiced it are extinct.
Well,
Fail-
no, I
failure
think you're
means
I think you're
extinct, going extinct.
misunderstanding. No, you're misunderstanding.
No, I'm asking a question. So how do you define failure?
So let me turn the question back around on you. Can you explain? Can you give me an example of a form of Islamism, Quranism, whatever, that has worked in a
Yes.
European society? In
Yes,
European society.
Yes, right. But European society, what they've done is they've taken the Islamic law and they formed a thing called the Republic of the United States of North America. Dumb fuck.
Are you
The system,
how, are
the
you
system,
fucking
the system,
daft?
the system,
Are you
the system, the system, the very system which allows you to now speak wirelessly because it has allowed for people to flourish. It's called the Republic. Yes, it's based on Islam law.
How does
What the fuck?
What? What? Exactly, dude. You
There
don't
is
know
no historical
Meow,
precedent
meow.
for an Islamic republic. Even like, I mean, the whole idea of an Islamic republic was actually borrowed from the West, the republic part. The Islamic part, of course, not. So let's look at, I don't know, the first few four righteous caliphs, for example. Well,
Yeah,
They were not,
and you know where I live, right? I live in
Oh, well, look, look.
California, right? Yeah, I live in California.
are we
Oh,
having a
God.
real conversation, or are you
God.
just being a fucking troll?
Yeah.
No, continue, please.
or are you just actually crazy? Which is also
I'm
possible.
not crazy.
I mean,
I live in California,
also
dude.
Definitely possible.
California, where like Google comes from.
Hey,
Comes from the word Khalif.
But Jay, by the way, you have the link. I sent you the link, Jay. Come on over.
Yeah, I sent Jay the link as well. Jay should have the link. To be honest, I'm getting to the point where I just want to, create a new link and boot 0. And
So
Yeah,
that means you failed. You failed with your arguments. You have to boot
well,
it.
no,
That's
you
what
failed
that
to
means.
basically understand everything we've been saying.
No,
for the
I
last
understand
hour or
everything you
so.
said. No, I understand everything you said. Why would you think I don't understand?
Because you constantly give evidence that you don't understand. You use empty words like, "Oh, you're just
Like
using a generalization."
no,
what?
Then you need to point out what
it's
the
even worse.
generalization is actually
I'm
about.
making observations.
No,
It's-
no,
And then you're
it's
talking about fucking California in Islam, like Jesus
yeah,
fucking
it's
Christ.
Khalif.
all right.
Comes from the word Khalif.
Here's the thing.
Okay.
Here's the thing, 0. All right. Whenever me and Kanop make a question or propose
Okay.
something to you, here's the rule. If you do this faggoty ass giggle, I'm gonna kick you. All right. So that's the new rule.
Wait,
If
you Google too all the time, man. What the hell? It's not fair.
Yeah,
You
but
Google it right now.
yeah. When I laugh, well, actually, I don't actually
No.
ever giggle. I don't ever giggle. I do a belly laugh. All right. So,
Okay.
so if you do a faggoty ass giggle one more time, you're gone. All right. Now, if you wanna
All right.
stay here,
That's
if you
cool.
wanna
That's cool.
stay
That's
here
cool.
and have
Yeah,
a real
we can-
conversation,
Yeah,
then we
that's
can
cool.
do
We
that.
can do that.
No more
Right.
faggoty giggles.
I'm not sure. Okay.
Yeah. All right. Go ahead. There we go. Rules
Okay.
set.
Oh, and the meow meow maybe.
Yeah,
No
yeah,
meow meow.
no
Meow?
meow meows either. No
Okay.
fucking meow meows either. That counts as a fucking giggle. Jesus Christ.
Okay. All right. Well, that's kind of weird. All right. Anyway, that's fine. Okay.
This is a serious stream. Jesus.
So the constitutional law is based on Muslim law.
No.
There's a bust of Muhammad in the back of the Supreme Court of the United States of America. So
what?
So it has actually worked. You asked for an example. I gave you an example.
Okay, no, give me an example. Explain to me how Islamic law
Applied
is intertwined
to the West.
with the Constitution.
Say again?
Explain to me how, just because there's a bust of Muhammad, explain to me how that relates to the foundations of constitutional law.
I have to dwell into that subject.
You bring it up.
Oh,
Listen, stop.
Kanop, so leave it up to you, man. If you want to kick
Stop,
this guy,
stop, Again, you're showing me, proving to me right now that I can't finish making.
Are you
I can't even
fucking
finish
high?
sentence. I'm not high, dude. Are we talking about subjects, or are you gonna like oh something? Are you high? What the fuck, dude? I was answering a question, dude, and you all just jump on it, like not even allow me to finish. Like, oh man, that's what you sound like.
I just don't even understand where you're going. Okay, so you say
where I'm going is obviously that the type of legal system that we have in the United States of America is different than what you have in Europe.
Okay, well, okay.
Isn't it now correct?
And so
yes.
what? What's
So
your point?
That's what I'm trying to say.
What's your fucking point?
My point is that the legal system of the Republic of the United States of America was based on Muslim law.
What?
And it works.
Because they're different, okay?
And
you
it
don't
works.
understand.
Your question was, is there something that has actually worked? And I gave you an example, which was applied to the West. Do you consider the United States of America to be a Western country, a European/Western country?
Yeah, in origin, yeah.
Okay, well, there you go. There's your answer.
Yeah, but it's not true. That's the problem.
What?
That's not true. Okay, so
really, it's not true.
Yeah, so some
Okay.
concepts like popular sovereignty, for example.
Okay, so how is it not true?
Because there's actually almost no commonality between Islamic law and
I'm
the
still confused on that point. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, well,
name me some similarities.
keyword
So-
confused. Keyword confused.
Okay.
I'm glad you
So name-
admitted
Hey,
it.
some articles of the
explain to us what part of
I'll
constitutional law?
I'll have to do further research to give you.
Then
Oh,
shut your
Um,
fucking mouth.
yeah.
so
before
so
like,
you're,
going
you're
on
just
with
you're
it.
just you're just blowing shit
Why
out
are
your
you laughing?
ass.
You're the ones who are confused.
Yeah, you didn't do any research, and we're confused. You're just like
Look, I've done some research,
Talking out of your ass.
but in order, stop. In order to give you a satisfactory answer, I would actually have to look into it and give you concrete examples, right?
Hey, Conop, how about those Holocaust arguments you went? Yeah.
fuck me.
Right. So there you go. I
It's
gave
been
you
a
an
while,
answer.
hasn't it?
Yeah.
Right. There
But
you are.
look,
There's
you,
your answer.
Like I can disagree so much with you.
And that's
but
it.
At least I understand what the fuck you're talking about.
Well, I gave you an answer. That's how you not understand.
Oh,
You guys are confused, and that's fine. I'll give you some examples, and there you go.
I've been awake for 21 hours, and I'm making more
Okay,
sense than
and?
you. Yeah.
No, you said you're confused. Dude, rewind the fucking.
Yeah, you know, sometimes
live stream.
being confused is a coherent answer.
Well, I gave you an example. An example is a success. United States of America is a fucking success, right?
Because it's based on Islamic law. But what's
Yeah.
the point, dude?
Yeah,
What the
explain that.
Well, that was the whole
Explain-
point.
Okay, go ahead.
So
Explain.
secular
explain-
Quranism, yes, the way I understand secular Quranism is as a legal system, which I believe I kept constantly hearing Claire describe it as such. So
do you want
you
to
asked
have
me
sex
how-
with Claire or something? Like, what the fuck is going on?
You
What?
have some like edgy.
no, I'm
crazy
answering the
fetish or
question. I'm answering your
something,
question. There's nothing to do with her really.
Maybe you can look at a website like I don't know agemalaysianpussy.com or something.
What? I thought we were talking about an Islamic system
Okay, all right.
applied to the West, right?
all
That was the question, right?
All right. Let's hear it. Let's be serious. Let's hear it. Let's see what happens. All right, go ahead.
Oh, we can actually be serious. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we're waiting.
Yeah, so here's your answer. United States of America, based on Muslim law.
How? Specific examples.
I'll have to work on those to be satisfactory.
Gee.
Okay. And
You
Okay, so
you
last-
realize how stupid you sound right now, right?
I don't care how I sound. Do you care about facts?
Wait, how can you
Yes or no?
how can you make an argument
Yes or no?
without and then okay, so when you want to make an argument, and then when I
Yeah.
say, all right, explain yourself, make a specific example, and then you say, I gotta get back to you on that. This is like, am I back in like third fucking grade right now? Like what is this like?
Hold on.
Like kindergarten?
Let me do the research right now, real quick. Just to
No.
be chill.
All right. No. You're
No?
gone. You're gone.
Gone.
You have endless
Gone.
patience.
Oh, so you don't want an answer then? Okay. That's fine.
You
But
don't
dude,
have
you're-
an answer.
No, I gave you an answer, dude.
Oh,
All right, Con
You're the one who said you're confused, right?
No, definitely.
Well,
I
then-
definitely
then-
know
okay,
that I'm
so
not confused
hold on,
right now.
let me-
All right. I'm
You're
shutting.
not? Okay, well,
Con up. I'm gonna send you a new link in a second. I'm shutting this one down.
All right, fail.
do you wanna leave?
You can also
Failure.
gracefully exit the street.
It's
Yeah,
like- it's
go
like- it's
ahead.
like-
You
Yeah.
can leave.
It's like banning a troll. That means you lost.
No.
No. We're just.
What do you mean?
we're
No,
just saying-
you
We're
lost.
just saying.
That
to
means
a
you
handicapped
lose.
person,
You,
we're just saying to a
what is
handicapped
it called
person,
when you
should go
shut it
somewhere
down?
else. It should be taken care of by somebody, but it's not gonna be us.
So what you can't like.
But dude, you're
So you don't like. You don't like. You don't like. So
dumb.
you asked a question. I gave you an answer.
You didn't give
And
any
you're,
fucking
like-
examples. You're dumb. Like I could make an argument about
Oh,
any
hold on,
comparison,
hold
and
on,
I'll
hold your
use
horse,
this case.
hold your horse, dude.
Fuck me, Jesus Christ! You're worse than
Dude,
Claire. I mean,
like,
at least with Claire,
obviously, like, you have
it's
no patience or nothing, dude.
deliberate
What are you talking about,
falsification and
dude?
deceit. With you, you're just too
Just
stupid.
just
You're
10
just too
minutes ago,
dumb.
you were talking about Malaysian pussy, dude. What the fuck is?
Yeah, because
Well, that was the end of that discussion. I curate it simply because I think it is very illustrative of the underhanded tactics of gish galloping that Conops uses, derailing the conversation from one thing. I fortunately for myself, I knew that I wanted to talk about patriarchy and why it is obviously better than matriarchy, and to prove my point that the West is a matriarchy, and I define patriarchy as a society that prioritizes the preferences of married fathers, and matriarchy as a society that prioritizes the preferences of unmarried mothers who casually conceived their illegitimate offspring and casually parented them. So it is a no-brainer as to which kind of society we should choose to live in if we want to live in an advanced civilization. Because my point is that all advanced societies are patriarchies, and all declining, primitive, extinct, and soon to be extinct societies are matriarchies. And matriarchies are societies whose members. I'll start again. A matriarchy is a society in which the overwhelming majority of its members do not practice marriage, and an objective way of measuring it would be the illegitimacy rate. Therefore, the perfect patriarchy would mean that 100% of parents are married parents, and the perfect matriarchy would be a society in which none of the parents in that society are married parents. And we know that the illegitimacy rate is rising in the West and globally. There is research that points to this. In the UK, the illegitimacy rate is over 50%. In Canada, it is 50%, and in America, it is 40%. Now, why do Conops, a Dutchman, and OV refuse to acknowledge these simple facts? I think it's quite simple, really. It's their particular standpoint. So while Conops claims to be a liberal and not racist, he certainly has a view about Muslims whom he calls barbaric and uncivilized and criminally inclined, and he'll reel out these reasons again and again as a reason not to adopt secular Quranism. Secular Quranism is basically a legal system based on the Quran, and you could call it a new school of Sharia. But I am not Muslim, I am agnostic. But I do see that marriage must be supported in order to continue living in an advanced civilization. And I think this would be the best way of morally regenerating a morally degenerate society. So Conops is a Dutchman, and he calls himself a liberal but he has made clear a number of times that he doesn't wish to marry and certainly doesn't wish to become a married father. OV LARPs as a Nazi, and I think is more invested in LARPing as a Nazi than in actually participating in any kind of political activism that would solve any problems. So he might, for example, acknowledge that the patriarchy must be restored, but he will say not with secular Quranism, not with Islam. And that, I think, is because he is determined to hold on to his position that Jews are responsible for all the evils of the world and the corruption of Western government, and white people are superior, and certainly superior to brown people, and brown people have a religion called Islam, and here is obviously suggesting that because Islam is the religion of brown people, it is ipso facto inferior to Christianity and white people. And because he has to keep LARPing as a Nazi, that's the position he will hold, because it is more important for him to LARP as a Nazi than to submit to truth, logic, and morality. I simply include this exchange to show the kind of underhanded techniques that they would use in order to discredit your arguments or even prevent you from speaking, and you know, in the meantime accusing you of interrupting their interruption of you answering their question. So and their treatment of zero is also very interesting. He pointed out that there is a marble engraving of Muhammad holding the Quran in, let me just get it right for you. It's a frieze, basically. Basically, in the United States Supreme Court, there is a frieze depicting the 18 greatest lawgivers of the world. The second frieze to the right features a person holding a copy of the Quran, the Islamic holy book. It is intended to recognize Prophet Muhammad as one of the greatest lawgivers in the world, along with Moses, Solomon, Confucius, Hammurabi, among others. So there we are. Here's what the Supreme Court's website says about this frieze. Muhammad, the Prophet of Islam, he is depicted holding the Quran. The Quran provides a primary source of Islamic law. Prophet Muhammad's teachings explains and implements Quranic principles. The figure above is a well-intentioned attempt by the sculptor out of Weinman to honor Muhammad, and it bears no resemblance to Muhammad. Muslims generally have a strong aversion to sculptured or pictured representations of their prophet. In the year in which the frieze of Prophet Muhammad was erected, Franklin D. Roosevelt was president and Charles Evans Hughes was the Chief Justice. It is not known how the court deliberated on this architectural contribution. No one at the time thought it inappropriate to include Prophet Muhammad as one of the greatest lawgivers of the world at the chambers of the United States Supreme Court. This was despite the fact that American society at that time was not as diverse as it is today. Women had just acquired the right to vote, and Japanese Americans were about to be sent to concentration camps. While the learned people in our country knew of the contribution of Prophet Muhammad, let me just say that this article was written by Abdul Malik Mujahid. I will give you the link in the description. While the learned people in our country knew of the contribution of Prophet Muhammad, our neighbours today are given regular doses of misinformation about the Prophet and Sharia, the path of the Prophet, more commonly described as Islamic law. Prophet Muhammad envisioned a just and peaceful society with a mass peace movement. He achieved this goal during his life. He hated war and always preferred a peace treaty with his opponents, even if it was not favourable to his and his followers' interests. He established his first peace sanctuary in the city of Medina without any war whatsoever. While he did fight to defend the peace sanctuary, it is critical to note that the total time of actual fighting defending his people was not more than 6 days in his life of 63 years. He struggled to secure a peace that ensured justice and liberation for all people, especially for those most marginalized and oppressed. I won't read it all to you, since you can read it for yourselves in the link below. I will just mention that it is an interesting article written today, Sunday, January the 5th, 2020. How interesting that it should come up when I was having this exchange with my fellow American, well, they're not the fellow YouTubers, but obviously I'm not American, but they are. Or at least Zero is an American, and so is OV. Conops is a Dutchman in Holland. But yes, it is, I like to think, auspicious that this should be mentioned. Of all days, today, I hope it is auspicious in spite of the other inauspicious signs of the way the world is going. I had to record this exchange simply to indicate how dishonest OV and Conops were in receiving this piece of information. They had to end the exchange to the extent that they had to start a new hangout in order to get Zero off there of the discussion, so they could discuss the things they wanted to discuss in peace and without being troubled by the troubling information that Zero had just given to them. So thank you for your attention. I hope you will digest the information, as I hope you will, and I will doubtless be speaking to you again very soon. Thank you.